Let me be straight with you. I know this topic is going to step on some toes, especially now that Korean culture is having its biggest moment in history. K-dramas are on every screen, K-pop is on every playlist, and Korean food is showing up in malls and food courts all over the Philippines. Korean is cool right now, and nobody is arguing with that. But cool and practical are two very different things. If you are a Filipino who is seriously thinking about learning a foreign language, not just as a hobby but as a real tool for your future, then I want to make a strong, honest case for Japanese. This is not about putting Korean down. It is about giving you a clear picture of which language actually works harder for Filipinos in the real world. So, let us get into it. Pronunciation. Japanese sounds like home. The first thing most people worry about when learning a new language is how to speak it correctly. And this is exactly where Japanese gives Filipinos a head start that most people do not even realize they have. Japanese vowels, A, I, U, E, O, are pronounced in a clean, open, and consistent way. They do not change depending on the word around them. They do not have hidden sounds. What you see is what you say. Now think about how Filipinos already speak. Whether you are using Tagalog, Bisaya, Ilocano, or any other Philippine language, your vowels are trained to produce those same clean, open sounds. This overlap is not random. It is a real phonetic connection that makes Japanese feel surprisingly familiar to Filipino ears and mouths from the very beginning. Korean is a different story. Korean has sounds that simply do not exist in Filipino or in English. There are tense consonants that require a specific tension in your throat and mouth that most Filipinos have never practiced. There is a vowel sound that is no direct match in any Philippine language. These sounds are not impossible to learn, but they take significantly more time and effort to produce correctly. For a Filipino just starting out, that extra difficulty in pronunciation alone can slow down your confidence and your progress. Japanese removes that wall. You spend less time fighting your mouth and more time actually learning the language. Your multilingual brain is already an advantage. Here is something that Filipino learners often forget about themselves. You are already impressive. The average Filipino speaks at least 2 languages before they even think about studying Japanese or Korean. Most Filipinos grow up using a regional language at home, switching to Tagalog at school, and using English in formal or professional settings. That daily mental workout of moving between different language systems has trained your brain in ways that monolingual speakers simply do not have. Your brain already knows how to hold multiple sets of grammar rules, multiple sets of vocabulary, and multiple ways of thinking about the same idea. Language studies consistently show that people who already speak more than one language pick up new languages faster. The brain becomes more adaptable. It builds stronger connections between sounds and meanings. It learns to tolerate the uncertainty of not understanding everything right away and keeps pushing forward. This is exactly the mindset that accelerates language learning. And Japanese, with its syllable-based rhythm that matches the natural flow of many Philippine languages, connects to that existing mental framework in a way that feels less like starting from zero and more like adding a new room to a house you already live in. The writing system is not as scary as it looks. Let us talk about the part that stops most people before they even start: the Japanese writing system. Yes, Japanese uses 3 writing systems. There is hiragana, katakana, and kanji. When people hear that, they immediately picture years of painful memorization and endless flashcards. But here is the honest truth that many beginner resources fail to mention. Hiragana and katakana are both completely learnable within 1 to 2 weeks of daily study. Each character in these 2 systems represents a sound, a syllable, and nothing more. Once you know all the characters, you can read anything written in hiragana or katakana out loud, even if you do not yet understand the meaning. That is a huge win for beginners because it removes the mystery and lets you start connecting written Japanese to spoken Japanese very early in your studies. Kanji is the more complex writing system, and it does take longer to master. But here is the key point: you do not need to master all of it to function. Reaching a level where you can work, communicate, and build a life in Japan does not require knowing thousands of kanji. It requires knowing the most common ones, which are taught in a structured and logical order through standard Japanese learning resources. Compare this to Korean grammar, which changes the entire structure of a sentence depending on who you're speaking to. The system of speech levels in Korean, where you use completely different verb endings for a stranger, a friend, a boss, or an elderly person, is a layer of complexity that sits on top of everything else. For beginners, that can feel overwhelming in a way that slows down real communication. Japan is actively looking for you. Now, let's talk about the part that matters most for a lot of people: jobs and income. Japan is facing one of the most serious labor shortages in the developed world. The population is getting older faster than younger generations are being born, and the gap between available jobs and available workers is growing every year. The Japanese government has responded by opening more pathways for foreign workers to enter the country legally and work in meaningful, well-paying positions. Filipinos are consistently among the most preferred nationalities for these programs, particularly in caregiving, nursing, hospitality, food service, construction, and manufacturing. The standard measure of Japanese proficiency for most job placements is the JLPT, the Japanese Language Proficiency Test. It has 5 levels, from N5 at the most basic to N1 at the most advanced. Reaching N4 or N3, which most dedicated learners can achieve within 1 to 2 years of consistent study, is enough to qualify for many legitimate job programs in Japan. Some government-supported programs even provide training and financial assistance to help Filipinos reach the required level. The pipeline from studying Japanese to working in Japan is structured, transparent, and well-supported. That kind of clear pathway is genuinely rare when it comes to working abroad. The Korean job market, while real and growing, is a harder climb. Korean companies, both inside Korea and in the Philippines, tend to favor Korean nationals for mid-level and senior positions. The BPO industry in the Philippines does have Korean language accounts, and those are solid opportunities. But the Japanese BPO market in the Philippines is equally active, and Japanese-speaking agents are actually harder to find than Korean-speaking ones. That scarcity makes you more valuable. Supply and demand applies to language skills just as much as it applies to anything else. Japan and the Philippines already have a strong connection. Beyond jobs and money, there is a genuine cultural and historical bond between the Philippines and Japan that often goes unrecognized. Japan is one of the Philippines' largest trading partners. Japanese companies operate across almost every major industry in the country: automotive, food manufacturing, retail, electronics, and more. Japan is also one of the top countries of origin for tourists visiting the Philippines, and Filipino workers in Japan number in the hundreds of thousands. Many Filipino families have relatives living or working in Japan, and intermarriage between Filipinos and Japanese nationals is common enough that it has created whole communities with deep roots in both cultures. When you learn Japanese, you are not just gaining access to a job market. You are gaining access to a network of real relationships, communities, and opportunities that already exist and are already growing. You are also gaining the ability to enjoy Japanese media, anime, films, books, music, in its original form without relying on subtitles or translations. That cultural depth adds a layer of meaning to your studies that keeps you going even when the learning gets hard. The long game is worth playing. For younger Filipinos and students in particular, the long-term rewards of Japanese are significant. If you commit to 2 or 3 years of serious study and reach N2 or N3 on the JLPT, you open doors that very few Filipino applicants can even knock on. You can work in Japan, get hired locally by a Japanese company at a higher salary bracket, explore careers in translation, interpretation, or tourism, or apply for the MEXT scholarship, a scholarship program offered by the Japanese government that covers tuition, living expenses, and travel for Filipino students who want to study in Japan. It is one of the most generous scholarship programs available to Filipinos, and Japanese proficiency is the foundation you need to access it. None of this means Korean is a waste of time. If Korean culture moves you, if K-dramas are what make you excited to open a language app, then follow that energy, because genuine motivation is the most powerful tool in any learner's hands. But if you are making a strategic decision about where to invest your time and effort as a Filipino who wants real results, better career options, higher income, more global mobility, then Japanese is the smarter, more practical, and more immediately rewarding choice available to you right now. Choose the language that builds your future, not just the one that is popular on your feed. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe for Japanese and Korean language learning content, fun ESL class stories, sometimes even the toxic ones, plus videos about pets, plants, and anything interesting I discover in my daily life.